Okay, so what is this now?
Oh, sorry, Professor Jeffers. Let's start from the beginning. This is a recording device that I use to communicate with the rest of the world. I just, answer questions that people might have, and because we've had so many conversations in the past, I thought I could introduce you to this, and then if you wanted to share your wisdom with the world, you could just borrow my equipment and go for it. Okay.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
So let me do a quick introduction, though, if that's okay.
Oh, wait. First, let's do this.
Oh. What was that?
Well, the theme song.
Oh, okay. Yeah, theme song. Why not?
I like theremin music.
It is cool.
Yeah,
I gotta give you that.
All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. My name is Wilma Chronicle, and I am here today with Professor Jeffers, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Okay. Thank you. I am Professor Edward Jeffers, and I am what is known as a crypto ambassador. Now, I say I am known as that. It's not a very well-known term. What I try to do is improve relationships between humans and cryptids, because there's a lot of fear out there and a lot of stories about cryptids that are just, scary. And I'm trying to...
Did you say you're also just sort of for clarification and to clear up some misunderstandings?
Oh, yeah,
Would that be more of your particular field of interest?
Exactly. It's just to kind of show these various different creatures in a different light.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there are a lot of people that have, questions about cryptids. And before we get into that, what I really should do is kind of explain what a cryptid is. And I did look up a couple of definitions just to kind of help with that. The first one I found I don't really like that much. It says an animal whose existence or survival is disputed or unsubstantiated. Now, the only thing I don't like about that one is the use of the word animal.
We're all animals.
Well, yeah, but animal implies something that is, I don't know, less intelligent maybe?
Non-sentient?
Yeah, exactly. And there are a lot of cryptids that are sentient, and that, that's part of the problem, is people don't realize that.
Sure.
Now, there's a couple of them definitions here that I like better. A creature that is found in stories and that some people believe exists or say they have seen, but that has never been proven to exist.
Okay. Yeah. That's fair, but there's a lot of things that haven't been proven to exist. What differentiates a creature from, say, a ghost?
Well, now that's a whole new category, really. Sure, maybe ghosts are creatures.
Oh my, that does open up a can of worms, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we can get into that later, but there are a lot of different branches of cryptids as far as I'm concerned. The main one, obviously, is the one that most people, they're looking for, say, a Sasquatch or something like that. And then, there are stories of ones that are less sought out and just reportings of creatures that they don't understand what they are. And the only other definition that I have written down here is kind of a restatement. It's a creature whose reported existence is unproven.
So I really want to put in something snarky here, but I'm gonna refrain. Okay. So I did have a couple of questions that I had come across when talking to other people.
Oh, good. That'll help a lot. All right. So what have you got?
Aaron, who goes by the pronouns they, them, asks, should humans be expected to proactively protect cryptids as threatened or endangered species?
Okay. That's a good question. I would counter with, should humans be expected to proactively protect animals as threatened or endangered species.
Well, I mean, we do have a list of threatened and endangered species. Should maybe cryptids be included in that list?
Well, here's the thing. There is also a list of cryptids, and not all of them are endangered. But the problem is, by the very nature of cryptids not being proven to exist, it's hard to tell which ones are actually endangered.
Wow, that is quite the conundrum.
Yes, it is. But there are some ways to tell.
Okay.
There are some species of cryptid that I definitely would say are not endangered simply because of the number of sightings.
Okay.
I mean, if they're cropping up everywhere, then it makes sense. Now, let's take the Gigantopithecus sapien, which is basically an umbrella for things like the Sasquatch, the skunk ape, Yetis. They're not real fond of the term Bigfoot, but
Isn't that just a Sasquatch?
Well, it's mostly regional.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, Bigfoot is from my understanding, mostly kind of North American, the Northwest section, like
Sure.
Canada and
like
Oregon,
Washington,
Washington, yeah, that sort of thing. Skunk apes are, I think, mostly Florida, but they're more of a swamp creature.
Mm-hmm.
Yetis obviously are more in the mountainous and cooler areas.
So is that restricted to just the Himalayas then?
No. There have been reportings in places other than the Himalayas. It's kind of like, well, say for example, you were German, mm-hmm. but you moved to Canada, just off the top of my head there. That's where they're from.
Yetis are from Canada?
No. Yetis are from the Himalayas. I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying that Yetis can migrate like humans?
Oh, absolutely.
So they might be in the Alps.
Right. Okay. And that actually brings up another interesting thing, the chupacabra.
Oh.
Now, that is definitely one that is not endangered. And the reason why is because they got brought over from Puerto Rico to South America to deal with goat problems.
You mean there were too many goats?
Yeah, goats were running rampant. And so they got brought over here, and there are much fewer natural predators to chupacabras in this area than there is on the small island of Puerto Rico where they're from. So now they're being seen as far north as Texas, and people still use them for that sort of thing, but it's hard to control the population.
Because there are no predators.
There's no natural predators to chupacabra over here. Yeah. Now,
what are the natural predators in Puerto Rico?
Well, there's various different mosses and things that slow down their production, and they don't exist over here.
So it's more environmental than actual predator.
Well, I mean, is moss a predator? That's the thing. If you get a mold in your lungs, that could kill you.
True.
I don't know that there's a reported case of a dead chupacabra that is infested with moss. Also, and you might find this hard to believe, something about the hummingbirds.
The hummingbirds?
Yeah, there's some magical properties in the hummingbirds in Puerto Rico. I'd have to look it up to find out exactly what that story was, and we can talk about that another time, but only in Puerto Rico, apparently. And that's one of the reasons why they're spreading so much.
The chupacabra or the hummingbird?
No, the chupacabra.
Oh, gotcha,
there's no hummingbirds keeping them down, That with the moss, it keeps the population more controllable at any rate.
So moss and hummingbirds. It's always fascinating to talk to you, Professor Jeffers.
Oh, well, thank you.
You are welcome.
Yeah. Now, there's not an actual kill order on chupacabras anywhere that I know of, but if you want to talk about cryptids that run rampant, we're talking Mongolian death worms.
My goodness, what are those?
Well, they are worms that are in the Gobi Desert that are murdery.
How big are these worms?
They're pretty big, from what I understand. I've never seen one before, and I'm not sad about that.
Okay, but like pretty big for a worm or really big? Are we
Like
talking
really big, you
like
know.
dune-sized worms?
Well, maybe not that big, but
I see.
but they're large,
Like
they're toothy and
size of a like a dog or the size of a cow or what are we talking here?
yeah, somewhere in there probably, yeah.
Okay.
Like I've never seen one. It's hard to make a comparison if you've not seen a thing.
Yeah, that's fair. So why is it a death worm? Are they just eating things? Does it have a poisonous bite or what's going on?
It's the eating things is a big part of it.
Sure.
They're known to be venomous as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, that even some thoughts that maybe they excrete some kind of caustic substance. There's a lot there that I've not really had to deal with before.
I hope so. Not
sad about that
Yeah.
anyway. But I mean, there's also like the moth folk. They're about as common as moths if you know where to look for them. But the problem is, people don't.
So by moth folk, you mean the Mothman prophecies kind of situation?
Yes. The story is about let's use her real name about Jessica Mothman are what have brought the moth folk to people's vision the most.
So are we seeing only Jessica Mothman in these situations, or are the moth folk just coming out of the woodwork to let us know that bad things are about to happen?
Well, I actually wanted to get into that later, but we do need to actually talk about some species that are endangered or have been in the past.
Absolutely.
Okay, so have you ever heard of the emerald ash borer?
Isn't that like a beetle that's killing the trees or something?
It was a while back that it wiped out a lot of the ash trees in northeast United States and southeast Canada. And that is where pukwudgies make their home. And the population of pukwudgies in the 1990s and 2000s took a nosedive because of this. They very nearly were wiped out, but there have been some programs that they're starting to make a comeback.
The ash trees, the pukwudgies, are both.
Yeah, both, and it is the humans that are trying to cultivate an ash tree population again that is allowing the pukwudgies to thrive once again.
Okay, so it's more like the humans are protecting the trees, and that by default is helping the pukwudgies.
Yes. Okay. So, in answer to the question from before, should humans be expected to proactively protect cryptids that are threatened? Yes, and they don't necessarily have to directly affect the cryptids to do that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like what was that? Overforestation was killing out these little owls, and they were just like, okay, well, we can protect the owls by protecting the forest.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it's any big secret that humanity has not been doing its best work trying to keep the environment pristine.
Yeah, and except for a few, obviously crazy people, I think we can all agree that we could do a better job.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, having a good environment it's vital for not just cryptids, but any life forms.
Yeah, including humans.
Yeah, right. So I said earlier that if there are not a lot of sightings or if a cryptid isn't very well known, there's a chance that it's endangered.
Okay.
That's the kind of thing I think that has happened with the Ozark howlers.
Oh, it's really interesting that, and you may not know this, I'm actually originally from Missouri.
Really?
And I did not know anything about Ozark howlers until recently.
And they're also supposedly supposed to have been pretty common in Arkansas as well. And no one that I've talked to from there seems to know much about them. In fact, when I was trying to research them a few years back, the only thing that I found was something called the Howler Bike Trail Park, which is in the Ozarks in Missouri somewhere. And to me, I didn't see any Ozark howlers there.
So they have an entire park that supposedly is either dedicated to or you can spot an Ozark howler there, but the Ozark howlers are nowhere near it.
Not that I saw.
Well, at this point, maybe they just are wise enough to not be around humans.
Well, I mean, that's true. And they're fairly distinctive because they look kind of cat-like, but they also look kind of bear-like. It's hard to explain without a picture, and I'm assuming we can't use pictures on this.
No, but we can set up a forum so that people can put pictures up, and we can put pictures up.
Oh.
So
Okay.
Well, we can get to that.
All right. Well, I mean, I don't have any actual photographs. Maybe we can get an artist to do a rendering.
Or if enough people are interested in the site, we can put it up. Put up a site for cryptid remarks and
We can do that?
yeah, it'll be on the World Wide Web, as it were.
Huh.
And then people can put up pictures, and we can put up pictures, and we can share information. It's the point of the internet initially.
Oh, wow. So they don't do that anymore?
Mostly sharing information, and you just have to be careful what information you're absorbing. Some of it, as you well know, Professor Jeffers, some information is just not right.
That is true. Or we're not putting any cryptids' lives at risk here, are we?
How could we do that? By giving people information.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, now that's a legitimate question. Is giving people information about these cryptids going to potentially harm them?
Well, not what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
A lot of the information that I've seen have been like horror stories of people being terrified by creatures they didn't understand.
Sure.
And this information that I'm trying to come forward with, hopefully, well, with the exception of the Mongolian death worms, hopefully will help people be a little calmer around them.
Well, that's fair. It's been like understanding rattlesnakes. By the time you can hear them, they're probably more worried about you than you are about them.
Exactly. And, like rattlesnakes,
mm-hmm.
You don't want to go and grab them by the tail because you're going to get bit,
Yeah.
And if you understand something more, you can deal with it without getting yourself hurt.
That's fair.
So there is one other creature that comes to mind, and that's the Dorku, that maybe not really that well known around here. They're from Ireland.
Okay.
I like to call them otter dogs because I think they kind of look like that. But
as if I didn't need another reason to go to Ireland. They have otter dogs.
Well, that's not the only name that they have, but that's the only one I'm going to mention because I like that one.
Okay.
Anyway, what happened was, I think it was 1772. That's what it was. Grace McLaughlin was in Glendale of County Leitrim that was found dead with a Dorku near her. And her husband obviously thought that she was killed by this thing.
Okay.
And so he murdered it,
mm-hmm.
and then heard a scream from the waters, and the spouse of the otter dog jumps out and chases him, and there's a whole Benny Hill Three Stooges style chase going on all over the place. Ultimately, the town did kill the other one as well, though. So that was a mating pair that got killed, and then there were no sightings for a very, very long time.
Because a word got out in the community, or just because they're so rare nobody sees them?
Well, just because I think they may have killed the only mating pair in that area.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's my theory anyway. Now, there have been more recent sightings,
mm-hmm.
so they're not gone.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also question that maybe they aren't actually adults and that wasn't a breeding pair, because there are some people that think that these are basically baby, well, I'll just call them baby Nessies because most people will understand that reference, but the sea creature type of cryptid, they think they're babies of those.
So you think that these things that people are calling otter dogs are actually an infant version of something that could potentially be like a Nessie?
Well, some people think that.
Okay.
I'm not convinced myself because Nessie doesn't look anything like an otter.
Yeah, I was going to say, none of the descriptions I've ever heard of Nessie does she have hair.
No.
Or fur.
No. But, I mean, think about ducks.
What about them?
Well, ducks have fur or down
Yeah.
And then when they grow up, they have feathers. So it is possible that as an infant, something could have fur, and then as it grows up, it doesn't.
But isn't down just a softer version of feathers?
Oh. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
So I said I was going to talk about Jessica earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't know that she's the one that's responsible for that. And
I'm sorry, for what?
oh, right. Sorry. I have this thing where I'll talk about something and then 5 minutes later, I will go on with that subject and just keep talking like I never stopped.
That's why I'm here.
I appreciate that.
No
so
problem.
I am talking about the Silver Bridge collapse at Point Pleasant.
Gotcha.
And the fact that she was the one that was trying to get everyone's attention and really didn't. But mostly just, scared some kids that were making out in the forest. And
What time frame was that?
it was the 1960s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought it was a long time ago.
Oh, no. It really was fairly recent. I mean, there have been sightings of moth folk that go back centuries, but I don't know if Jessica's centuries old.
Yeah.
But I do know that she does get a little bit tired of men taking the credit or getting the credit for all the work that she's done.
Yeah, that's a common complaint.
Oh, absolutely.
Females of any species, I assume.
Oh, yes, I've noticed that. And I mean, she has saved lives. In 1978, Freiburg mine in Germany, she stood in front of the mine when the workers were trying to get in and just started screeching to hear them say it. I think she sings really well.
Oh,
but basically, they ran away, and an hour later, the mine collapsed.
Okay. So what makes Jessica's situation so unique that nobody else of the moth folk community have gone out of their way to prevent people from dying in these horrific accidents?
Well, she's just a huge sweetie is what it is.
Oh, okay.
She does like people, and it's not just humans that she tries to protect. It's just that that's the only ones that the humans hear about. She was sighted around Chernobyl.
Really?
Yeah, she was seen flying by one of the planes in the 9/11 attack.
Wow.
And also was trying to clear out Fukushima in 2011.
To clear it out?
Yeah, trying to get people to leave because of the seismic activity that caused the meltdown of the reactor there.
Yeah.
But people don't pay attention.
Well, are there other moth folk doing this, or is Jessica unique?
She's pretty unique in that. I mean, there have been other moth folk that have tried to do various different things in the past. And, I mean, she's talked to me about them. I'd have to have a conversation with her to remember specifics. But she champions the cause much more than any moth folk in recent history.
The cause of protecting people?
The cause of protection, yes.
Oh,
I mean,
Mothman...
Mothman do have a bit of a psychic ability. I'm assuming it's psychic. The way she described it was of being able to tell when something bad is going to happen.
Okay.
The whole Mothman prophecies thing wasn't that far off. They can tell, but a lot of them just don't care. I mean, there are people walking around. They see that an animal's going to get hurt and they won't do anything about it. It's the same type of thing, whereas some people would protect them.
Okay, I see.
And she's just really sweet like that.
I understand.
I have to introduce you to her at some point.
That would be an honor.
Yeah, if I can find her again.
Yeah, that might be.
Okay, well,
challenge.
Yeah. Did you have any other questions?
I did have one. There was a person I ran across. His name was Clayton. They also go by they, them. They had an interesting question. Which cryptids passed the Harkness test? And for our listeners who may be unfamiliar with the Harkness test, that is from a character that started in Doctor Who and then had his own TV show, name of the show, Torchwood. That he eventually started, named Jack Harkness. And Jack Harkness was, let's say, pansexual on steroids a bit.
Yeah.
And so,
But good for him.
yeah, no judgment, but whatever, as long as consent, consent is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the question is, are there cryptids that pass the Harkness test? Now, the Harkness test is, do you know of the Harkness test?
I've heard of the Harkness test. Do you want to tell people about it?
So the Harkness test is 3 questions. Does it, meaning the creature, have human or greater intelligence? Can it talk or otherwise communicate with language? And is it of sexual maturity for its species? Because anything less than those 3 check marks, then you having relations with it, for lack of a better term, would be non-consensual.
Right. Or in the case of intelligence,
yes,
could be considered bestiality, which is not a thing that most people condone.
Well, most humans, I assume.
Well, by people, I do mean not just humans.
Okay.
It would be like a moth folk having sex with a moth, in the same way as it would be like humans having sex with other monkeys.
Okay, sort of sapien type relations.
Yeah, and that's the main thing. Now, we can take this and apply it to any specific cryptid. I mean, let's talk about some of the ones that we talked about earlier. So, Sasquatch. Now, the first question, does it have human or greater intelligence? Most of them, yes. It's kind of like humans. I think there are some humans out there that don't have human or greater intelligence.
I think that's been apparent for a while now.
Yes. And then the second one, can it talk or otherwise communicate with language?
Yeah.
And yes, they can. I've met some.
Okay.
They mostly decent people.
Sure.
Yeah. And then the third, is it of sexual maturity for its species? Well, that, of course, depends on the Sasquatch.
Okay.
Or the skunk ape, or whatever it is.
Well, like humans, is that there's not really an age of sexual maturity, more of a mental and psychological place of being.
Essentially, yes. And not a lot of cryptids actually have a line of demarcation like humans do. Mm-hmm. Which that number varies country to country. I'm not going to say any one of them is right or whatever, but
sure.
Yeah, they draw a line, and you don't mess with that.
Right.
And that's going to be true for most of these. The only one that I think even has a chance of failing that one all the time would be the Doarku, because if they are baby Nessies, then that would be bad all around.
Well, the Doarku, can they communicate?
Well, yes, and they are very smart, but if they're children,
then it doesn't matter.
Right. You have to answer yes to all 3 questions.
Correct.
And like the Mongolian death worms, not that you would want to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do they really communicate?
I mean, I don't think they have human or greater intelligence. I think they're just eating machines.
I think, the term worm would indicate that.
Well, I mean, there are intelligent worms, but...
There are?
Well, yes and no. It's kind of a whole phase shift sort of thing. It depends on where they are at the time, but we don't need to get into that right now.
Okay.
Chupacabra, they're kind of on the lesser end of human level intelligence. They can communicate, but it does say communicate with language. And I will say, I've never actually talked to one.
So like a dog can communicate to a certain extent, but it cannot, with language.
No.
Let you know if something, if you need to go someplace, or if they need to go out or whatever. But they can't, ask you how your day was in language form.
Right. But whereas with the moth folk, they can communicate, and they can communicate telepathically. But they can do that with language.
Okay.
They're also very, very intelligent. I mean, there are definitely members of the species that are of age?
I would assume Jessica's at least, well, depending on how old a moth folk get, she's got to be at least 50 now.
Well, I mean, yeah. I didn't ask her age.
Yeah,
I did not want to be rude.
Yeah.
Also, there really wasn't anything there when I met her.
It's
so
fair.
It's fine. But now Ozark Howlers, I just don't know enough about them. I've never really met an intelligent one, or even really met one. I've seen them from a distance, but that's about it. Now puckwudgies, on the other hand, they definitely would fit all three categories, the adult ones.
Okay.
They can communicate, I think, mostly through telepathy. At least that's how I've talked to them in the past. They're very smart.
Now, I've seen some pictures, and I think having relations with one would be a challenge.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in all of these cases, just because it's okay because of the Harkness test doesn't mean it's easy or even something you would want to attempt.
Sure.
But that's the idea, though. I mean, there actually have been instances of human cryptid
relations.
Sexual relations, yes. It's not that common, but it's like the type of thing where in Star Trek, where there are half Vulcans and you have Captain Kirk, who's kind of proto Captain Harkness, but
to a degree.
yeah. And honestly, this isn't the type of thing that most people are going to need to worry about.
Yeah.
Because, it's...
I guess the question that I would have is, as humans, we want to be sure to pass the Harkness test before we proceed in a sexual relationship with a cryptid. But are there any cryptids out there that don't care and are, for lack of a better term, sexual predators?
Oh, I'm sure they're out there. I personally haven't had to deal with them, but I mean, where there are creatures, there are
bad creatures.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm trying to handle this tactfully because I don't want to upset people, but it's just the fact that is the case. There are bad creatures out there, and not every one of them is going to Harkness test us before trying anything. But like I said, there are decent ones out there as well.
That's fair. Alrighty. Well, I think that's a lot of information that we've handled today, and I want to thank you so much for Professor Jeffers for coming and talking to me. It's always a joy.
Oh, okay.
Having a conversation with you.
Well, I mean, I always enjoy it too. I thank you for introducing me to this. I might have to try this again at some point. See if I can get some more things go.
Well,
so
I'm going to go over sort of the basics of how this works, so that if you want to do one on your own, you can.
All right. So now, how do you? What is this? The control of the?
Well, you don't want to do the.
But I mean, but this button here.
No, I mean,
should I? You've been listening to Cryptid Remarks. The part of Professor Edward Jeffers was played by Jeffrey Morton. The part of Wilma Chronicle was played by Kimberly Morton. All music was written by Ruben Fansler. Sound editing by Jeffrey Morton and Ruben Fansler. Our web guru is Aaron Milosic. If you have any questions you would like us to cover, contact us at cryptidremarks@gmail.com or link to our Discord through cryptidremarks.com. Thank you for listening. And don't worry, I probably don't exist either.